right, guys, welcome back to Always Moving Forward. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the show today, and coming and watching this interview. And thank you guys for all the subscribers that have joined us this week. We are trying to reach our 1,000 goal, and we're quickly getting there. So I want to thank you guys for that. Just remember to like, comment, and share, and let's reach that goal so that we can start doing some live interviews where you guys can actually interact with our guest, and then you can ask them questions in the middle of them to be able to share their story and kind of interact with them, which is what we really want to encourage you guys to do. So now, with that said, at the beginning of the show, back the very first show where Harmon and I were sitting on the bench, we told you guys that we wanted to be able to provide you guys with resources. A lot of people are trying to figure out what their purpose is and trying to find and follow it. Some of them just don't. Some of you guys just don't know where to start. So we wanted to make sure that we're bringing in guests that could help you with that. My guest today, her name is Michele McIntire, and I've known Michele for quite a while. Michele and I go to the same church. I met her, I can't even remember how long ago, but and I don't want to tell my age or her age either. So, but anyways, Michele is a great person. So, she has such a a powerful story to tell, journey, and I want you guys to get to know her and what she's currently working on. So, I'm really excited about having her on. And I've had several women at our church approach me, and they're like, "You've got to get Michele on your show. You've got to get her on the show. You got to talk to her." So, including my wife. So, I'm bringing her in, and I want you guys to really get to know her and her heart and what she's been working on. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to introduce Michele McIntire. How you doing, Michele?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you today.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Well, cool. And I'm excited for my audience to get to know a little bit about you and some of the things that you've been through and what you're currently in the process of doing. I think is gonna help a lot of people. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let's get into it. So why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself? Um, you know, Tell us kind of where you were born and raised and what life was like growing up.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Michele McIntire, but my maiden name was Bodine, and I was born in East Texas in a town called Texarkana. So, if you've ever heard of Texarkana, we are the town that splits Texarkana and Arkansas. So you can stand with one foot in on the Texas side and one foot on the Arkansas side. So that's a really fun thing for people to do, to go there and put one foot on each state.
Wow.
And I still do that sometimes when I go visit. It's still fun to stand on state line and have one foot in one state, one foot in the other state.
Right.
Um, so I lived there till I was 12 years old. My dad worked in the airline industry, and Texarkana still has a very small regional airport, but back then it was pretty big. And he got transferred to Dallas Fort Worth when I was 12. And so we moved up to Grapevine, Texas, when I was 12, because that's the closest town at the time to Dallas Fort Worth Airport. And I graduated from Grapevine High School. And Grapevine was home forever, and it still has a piece of my heart there. But let me go back to Texarkana for a little bit. I was raised in a Christian home. I was very fortunate that my mom did not have to work when I was young. And I still remember coming home from elementary school and my mom playing not country music. I don't want to say that. It was country, like gospel music, is what I'm trying to say. And her favorite group was a group called Dallas Home and Praise. and they were based out of Lindale, Texas. And the praise part was Randy Adams and Tim and LaDonna Johnson. They kind of sang backup for Dallas Home. And I learned every word to every song on an album called, it was live, Dallas Home and Praise Live. And it had the song Rise Again. If you're old like me, you may have heard that song. But anyway, what's cool is I learned every word to every song back then. And because my mom played it all the time, she had this beautiful alto voice. In
Wow.
fact, that's how I learned how to sing harmony parts, because back then they didn't have children's church, and so I would stand in between my mom and my dad. And my dad had a beautiful, or he's still living, but he has a beautiful tenor voice, and so I learned alto from my mom and tenor from my dad, just standing
Wow.
in between them in church listening. But I would listen to my mom singing these parts. And then when my dad would get home from work, he would also sing these parts from this album. Well, years later, I got hired to sing backup for this female singer at a conference, and Tim and LaDonna Johnson were also hired to
Oh, wow.
sing backup at this conference as well. And so it was super cool to be able to go up to them and say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are my idols when I was in elementary school singing backup. I mean, singing with that album. And now here you are. I'm singing with you. And
Right.
they, it was super cool. They gave me hugs and everything. And then they said, "Gosh, that makes us really old."
Wow.
But anyway, so raised in a Christian home, and we were the type of family that was at church every opportunity that there was. I remember being at revivals, all the time, and falling asleep on the pew. I remember one time falling asleep under the pew because
Right. Yeah,
I was
people
tired.
don't realize the struggle when you were younger.
Right,
And
right.
churches were a lot longer, and they were a lot
Uh-huh.
more frequently throughout the week.
Every
And
night. Hmm.
yeah, and then you had those revivals,
Hmm.
and the pastors from the revivals, they didn't understand the concept of time,
They did not.
nor
Nope.
school,
No,
nor
nope.
work.
Nope,
As
nope.
far as
And
what you
mhm,
had to be the next day.
mhm,
Yeah,
and
I
you
remember those
went.
days. Fall asleep
Mhm,
under the pews.
if the church door was open, we were there. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. So, that was my life, and I loved it, and, that was all I knew, so I didn't know any different. I didn't know there was another way.
Right.
But that was Texarkana, and then we moved, like I said, to Dallas Fort Worth when I was 12, and loved it, growing up here. And when I was 18 and decided to go to college, um, there was not a question in my mind that I wanted to major in music. Um, as a child, I used to play being a teacher.
Mhm.
My mom and dad had bought me a little desk at some garage sale or something, and I would bring home extra papers from that my teachers would give me. And so I would set up my dolls around the room and be the teacher to my dolls.
Wow.
And and when my
Mhm.
cousins would come over to play, I would be their teacher, and we would do these exercises and play with the worksheets and stuff. So I wanted to be a teacher.
Wow.
But when it came time to pick a profession and go to college, I absolutely, hands down, I wanted to be a musician. And
Right.
so I chose music education. I wanted to choose vocal performance. And mom and dad, in their precious, sweet voices, said, "We love you more than anything in this world, but you need to pick a job that you can make some money at."
Wow.
So that was wise advice. And I still, sing and all of that, but I needed to make money as well. So uh, I've been teaching now for 25 years. Took time off to have my children. I should have just finished my 31st or 32nd year, but
Wow.
anyway, um, so I teach elementary music as my profession. Got a wonderful degree from a wonderful little university, Texas Wesleyan University. Made
Cool.
great friends there, and
Right.
so yeah. So I don't know how much more you want to me to expound on
Yeah.
that, but
No, you did. So, this is kind of what we talked about, too, is when people are looking for their purpose and their passion.
Mhm.
You know, normally, so your passion, do you feel like is more music or teaching?
Oh, I would definitely say music. I had a
Mhm.
former principal one time say if you had to go back, uh, if you were going back to college, let's say maybe to get your master's or to
Right,
change anything, would you pursue education, like a further degree in education, or would it
right,
be in music? And I said, no, no, hands down, music.
right,
Music was always my passion and it still is. You can set me in an opera
right,
audience or in a symphony audience, and I'm put in another world.
right,
It's just I think that it speaks to the heart more than, anything else can,
right,
and, I think that it's science has proven that a person who cannot communicate, but you put they can't communicate verbally, but you put them where music, it calms them and,
right.
so, yeah, definitely
Yeah,
music.
people, I think, underestimate the power of music.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that's in, like, any situation. And that is also, um, why Martha and I talk to our kids about what you listen to. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because what you listen to, everybody wants to say they're listening to the beat and the music itself, but you have to
Mhm.
actually listen to the words that you're
What you're
feeding yourself
feeding,
as well.
right, feeding your soul.
Because those words mean something, and the more you repeat them, and the more that you're you
Mhm.
know listening to those certain types of music, and I don't want to just like ragging on kids, but
Right.
but the more you do that,
Mhm,
um, you're really feeding that into you.
mhm.
And so it's really
Absolutely.
important to what you're listening to. And I
Mhm.
think it's fair to say too, or I don't say fair, but one of the things I wanted to mention too is that when we first started going to the church, Michelle was our praise and worship leader.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
and one of
Yes.
my favorite memories of Michelle is when we did the Christmas production.
Yes.
We went out. And she did. I mean, she really did it up with this Christmas production. I miss those things. So,
Yes.
um,
I miss them too. I do. I really do. Those were great fun times.
right? And
They
we
were.
had so much fun doing and we even you even had Michael Chancho, which was the guy running
Yeah. Uh-huh.
sound in
Uh-huh.
um, he had his own studio in Dallas, and we actually went and filmed a couple of
Mhm.
videos for it, like
Mhm.
music videos to go through, with that play. So, anyways, it was a lot of fun,
Those were great times.
right?
Great vision and a lot of fun. Mhm. I miss it.
So, now, so you were doing music, and then you decided, your parents were started to encourage you to teach.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so what do you remember the point that you just felt like, hey, this is my purpose in life. This is what God has called me to do.
Mhm.
Can you like pinpoint that and kind of talk about that?
Um,
Is
okay.
it a certain point, or is it like a build up?
I No, I don't think it was a buildup.
Hmm.
I think when I was 12 years old,
Hmm.
well, I know, I shouldn't say I think I know. I was 12 years old and um, pastors back then, evangelists back then, they were all talking about seeking God's will for your life. And
Right,
what is that going to be? And I honestly can say that when I was 12 years old, I knew that I was going to pursue music, pursue teaching,
right,
and the want of wanting to be a professional singer was there. The desire was there. But the teaching part of it, mom and dad saw in me that I was too good at that. And so
right,
they said, if God desires for you to be a professional musician, then God will make that happen. But
right,
your love of children and your ability to teach them is so strong that that's where we see that. God's going to bless that. And I
Right.
honestly, I think that too often, people or 18-year-olds don't listen to their parents enough, right?
Right.
I
Right.
think that the wise, um, advice that parents can give their children is so needed, and I'm so glad that I did listen to my parents. I don't regret that at all
Right.
because I have had an incredible career, and I have had students that have gone on and done amazing things, and it's so awesome because they come back and tell me, "Miss McIntyre, you're a part of this." I have some kids that have gone on to Berkeley College of Music, and then they come back and tell me, "You know what? You are a part of this. You encouraged me to do this." Or I have students that are professional musicians and they travel the world and sing and
Wow.
play, and I'm a part of that. And I pray over my students. I'm a public school teacher, but I pray over my students. And, I'm there. I'm in the midst of it and I pray over my students and
Right.
that's what I'm supposed to do. So, and my career is not over. I'm old. But
Not
my
that old.
career
Not that
I'm
old.
not done, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
I mean, you think
so
about, I interviewed Cindy Buffkin's uncle.
Uh-huh.
The guy is 75 years old,
Oh, I
and
love
and
that.
he has been through. The guy has been through so much,
Uh-huh.
and at 75, he's still jumping out of airplanes.
Oh my goodness, that's
So
fantastic.
yeah, he's a you know he was a paratrooper in Vietnam,
Oh,
and so
wow.
now he's a part of some organization um, that he's still jumping out of airplanes. Every time I think about um, um, start feeling like, oh, I feel old. I'm like, man, John's 75. He's still doing it. If John's 75 jumping out of airplanes, I could keep going.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, yeah, he was a great guy. So I was going to say too, one of the cool things about, following your passion and your purpose is what you're saying is, talk about with your students coming back and,
Mhm,
you know, knowing that what you're doing reached them and is part of their journey
mm,
is what it's all about. This is
mhm,
what, um, you know, uh, what I try to convey with the show, with your people being following and finding their purpose and the importance of it, because uh, and I know that a lot of people make this sound you know like being a servant is a bad word,
mm,
but our purpose is to serve one another.
mhm,
That's it. I mean, it's
mhm,
God did it. He came down in the flesh and he served us. And no matter what you use as a vehicle,
mhm,
I don't care if you're it's a teacher, a photographer, actor, singer, or whatever. That vehicle is it's just that it's a vehicle for you to use to serve each other. And I think that's part of the reason too. I think that people had so much, such a hard time with the pandemic
mm,
and being separated.
mhm.
Is because with that separation, it kept a lot of people from fulfilling their purpose.
Right, right.
And now
Mhm,
we're seeing the side effects with the anxiety and depression and
mhm,
all the things that's gone along with it. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring the show into focus, so to get people to get back into you know looking and seeking their purpose, and because
absolutely.
it's it's to serve one another. So anyways,
Mhm.
I know that was a little bit of a rant, but
No, I love it.
it
Absolutely.
was listening to things like like what you're saying, with students coming back and they're like,
Mhm,
you know um, you're a part of that journey,
mhm,
you know moving them forward.
mhm.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
now you've recently just like faced some I would say struggles, but been through some stuff
Yeah.
recently. So I want to kind of talk about that, and I want to talk about how that's um, helped you grow, and you know um, and where that's led, where that's leading you to.
Okay.
Are you going to talk about that?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I want to go back 12 years and talk about my mom.
Okay.
My mom passed away 12 years ago from non Hodgkin's lymphoma. And she was my biggest cheerleader. She was my world there for a while. And I walked through her sickness with her. And it was the hardest thing I had been through up to that point. She
Wow.
was the best grandma for my kids. And when she passed, my oldest was 17, about to start his senior year of high school. And then my younger two were in sixth grade and fourth grade. And I didn't understand why God would take her. I was only 43 when she passed. I didn't understand why she was so young. She was only 71, why I was so young, why my kids were so young. Didn't understand that. And it took me a long time to get through that.
Right.
But during that, my wonderful husband allowed me to just cry whenever I needed to just go in my bedroom and just cover my head with my covers and just be sad, right?
Right.
He
Right.
took over, he took the kids, he became mom and dad for the kids for a long time because I needed to just be away. And
Right.
he told the kids, he said, "We don't know how mom's going to be for a while. This is going to be traumatic for her for a while. Let's just let mom be." And that was a salvation for me because my husband took over and just let me cry, cry, cry. And
Right.
I did. I allowed myself to grieve and I allowed myself that time of recovery, that time to get it all out.
Right.
Okay. And I didn't cry for a few years, but it was a few years before I could go back to her house, before she had a part of what she left me were these beautiful Christmas Village, Thomas Kincaid Christmas Village
Right.
houses.
Yeah.
And I remember going over to her house to get them. I couldn't even walk over the threshold into her house. My sweet
Wow.
dad had to pass them to me through the door. I mean, that was how traumatic this was to me. So anyway,
Right.
um, I tell you that to tell you this. Um, my husband passed away 2 years ago,
Right.
and the the trauma of going through my mom 12 years ago compared to the trauma of going through my husband 2
Right.
years ago, very different trauma,
Mhm.
because 12 years ago, I allowed myself to fall into that grief because someone else could take over,
Right.
right? But this time, I didn't have anyone else to take over. Now,
Right.
my children were 10 years older.
Right.
They are they were 19, 21, and 27
Right.
when my husband passed away. I still have all the questions of, this isn't fair. I don't understand why God would take him. He was only 52 when he passed away. Lots of questions there,
Right.
but I didn't have the luxury of crawling into my bed and covering my head with my covers and um, just crying for 6 months.
Right.
My kids needed me to be strong. My
Right.
kids needed me to help them. But on the flip side, my kids wanted to be strong for me.
Right.
And it was a constant give and take of who's going to be the strongest for each other
Right.
today, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, and so it's been 2 years now, and looking back on it, God was so beautiful and so gracious to us of how we made it through that.
Right.
Um, I don't blame there's no blame. I would never blame God. I still have my moments of really crying out to the Lord for help.
Right.
I had this beautiful woman who lost her husband much younger than I did.
Mm.
A mutual friend set us up for lunch, and she said, "I came to the realization that God is now my husband."
Wow.
And that, I mean, mind blown. And I have said that a lot of times when I come to the end of my rope of, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I
Right.
say, okay, God, you are now my husband, and you're
Right.
going to have to fix this
Right.
because
Right.
I don't know what else to do here. Um, God became my husband at that
Mhm.
point. And all those verses in the Bible where it says, "You are a father to the fatherless and a husband to the widow," and I had just poured myself into those,
Right.
and I pray them over my children, I pray them over myself, and God has been gracious and help help in the time of trouble, you know? But
Right.
I know the experience that I had with my mom 12 years ago made me so much stronger to be able to go through the last 2 years. If I
Right.
had not gone through that 12 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to survive the
Right.
last 2 years without my
And
husband.
thinking about that too, the what like with your mom, um, when somebody is sick and you see them go through the process, you kind of know what's coming,
Right.
so you can kind of prepare for it.
Mhm.
But with Bob, you know, that came out of nowhere.
Nowhere. Right.
You know what I mean? That so you didn't even have time to prepare.
Mhm.
So that's totally you're dealing with two different
Mhm.
um, you know deaths in different ways. So you know going from knowing it's going to happen to not knowing what's going to happen.
Mhm.
That's going to happen, and then trying to understand that. I can imagine just how difficult that
Mhm.
was.
It was, well, like I said, mom's was the hardest thing I'd ever been to that point, but then there's nothing like Bob's. That was because we were just eating lunch on a Saturday afternoon, and then
Wow.
within the hour, he was gone, and
Wow.
it was, yeah, out of nowhere. So, you never know, it makes you just wanna hug all your people tight and love them while they're here, and constantly tell them that you love them and you care for them, and they mean the world to you, you know?
So let me
Mhm.
ask you too, like if somebody else is facing that kind of situation, what advice would you give them?
Oh, I have advice. Let me tell you, I told everyone this. This is very practical advice. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. In every marriage relationship, different spouses do different things. So, in our marriage relationship, Bob paid the bills, right? I didn't know how to pay one bill.
Wow.
I didn't know
Yeah.
passwords. I didn't know even how to log on to the bank account. I didn't know how to do
Wow.
anything.
Yeah.
And that was a nightmare. That was a nightmare. So he died at the near the end of the month, and so the first of the month, the house payment was going to be due.
Oh,
I
wow.
had no earthly idea how to do that. And his funeral service was like on the 30th of the month, and
Right.
then the first was like the next day.
Wow.
So I had to figure out how to pay the mortgage.
Wow.
And then the utility payments were coming up, and then, the streaming services, something as small as a streaming service,
Right. Right.
which how do I pay that? And
Right.
I remember that luckily our mortgage was automatic payment. So I figured out how to get on to log on to our banking, and whew, okay, mortgage is done. But
Right.
then I remember the day I figured out how to pay the electricity bill, and I was ready to do a cartwheel in the living room. Now, it's
Wow.
been a good 40 years since I've done a cartwheel, but I was about ready to figure out how to do that because I screamed. I was just ecstatic that I figured out how to do the electricity bill. So I have told all of my friends, if your spouse is the one that pays the bills, tell them to write it down, write down the codes, write down the passwords, because that was a nightmare for me. And it's something that you don't think about because in our relationship, especially when the kids were growing up, I I did the kids stuff. I like the paying for their lunches at school. I took care of that.
Right.
Bob would not have, if I something had happened to me when the kids were little, Bob would not have had a clue how to pay for their lunch bill because I did
Wow.
that. You
Right.
know, things each, or how to change the air filter in the air conditioner.
Right.
I did that.
Wow.
Bob would not have had a clue how to change the air filter. Different
Right.
spouses do different things. And anyway, that was just one thing. So if it's my advice is whatever
Right.
you take care of, write it down, or whatever the spouse takes care of, have them write it down because that was a nightmare for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's great advice because Martha and I are the same way. Like
Uh-huh.
Martha has her set of bills that she does, and
Uh-huh.
I have I take care of the rent, and um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's the same way. If something was to happen to her, I would have no clue of where
So write
anything
it
was.
tell her to write it
Yeah,
down. And so
yeah, definitely.
now that it's just me, and I have 3 sons, so now it's just me
Right,
and the boys. I call them the boys, they're men,
right,
but they'll always be the boys to me. I
right.
have written down everything and I have told them, "Okay, this is where this is where this is." I don't
Right.
want them stuck like I was. So, write it down.
Wow. Yes, that's great advice too.
Uh-huh.
And
Thank
it's
you.
not something you think about until
Uh-huh.
something like that happens.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I would be lost.
Yeah.
So
You're welcome.
I'm going to take that advice.
Uh-huh, good.
So all right, cool. So now um, you just had a women's conference.
Yes. Yes.
Then I know that went really well. A lot of people were talking, and then after your women's conferences, when everybody came to me and they're like, "You got to get Michelle on the show. You got to get Michelle on the show." So um, let's talk about a little bit about um, the transition.
Okay.
You what you've been doing for the for that 2 years, and how life has kind of changed for you, and kind of where it's leading you to now.
Okay. So, and I'll talk about because part of that is how this conference came to be.
Okay.
Um, so, right before Bob passed away, I was in the hospital with a headache. I have a condition. It's called new daily persistent headache. And so, when it comes, it's a headache that just won't go away. I had it 7 years ago,
Wow.
and I had the headache for 63 days. And
Wow.
to get rid of it, it's usually a hospital stay. And well, it always is a hospital stay. 2 years ago, it came back. And so this time I was in the hospital for 11 days. And during that hospital stay, I was getting more and more depressed because they couldn't find the right drug combination to get rid of it.
Wow.
And
So it's
I,
a
pardon me?
so this is a headache that lasts like several days in a row. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you said the longest one was like 63 days.
Uh-huh. That was in 2013. That one lasted
Wow.
63 days. And it's not a migraine where I can still handle light and sound. I can still function. I still went to work with it and everything, but it
Right.
just doesn't go away. Nothing makes it go away until they find the right drug combination to make it go away.
Wow.
It's miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's that's over 2 months
I
straight.
know. It was,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
trying to teach precious angels with a
Right.
headache, it
And
is
what's
not
that age
easy.
group? The age group that you're teaching? What's
At that time, it was kindergarten through 5th grade.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, I could not,
It
they
wasn't
put
easy.
5, 6, 7 year olds, screaming and yelling while you got
Yeah, I teach
a headache
music,
for
so
62 days, 63 days. Yes. Yeah, I couldn't.
it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
No, but 2 years ago when it came, it was in the summer, so I was in the hospital, and, out of the 11 days, this was, like, on day 8, and I was, actually laying in bed crying over it because it was hurting so bad and I was getting frustrated.
Right.
And I felt like I heard the Lord say, "This will soon be your testimony.
Oh,
Like
wow.
when this is over, it'll be your testimony." And I sat up in bed and said, "What?" And I heard it again. "This will soon be your testimony." So I grabbed my phone and wrote it down and started really praying about, "Okay, Lord, what do you want to do with this? What are you meaning from this?" And
Right.
that was the start of this. And when I got home from the hospital, I had a week with Bob before he passed away.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was able to talk to him about it. And I'm so grateful that the Lord allowed me to be able to tell Bob about it because he was so excited. He said, "This is really cool. This is really neat
Right.
what you're going to be able to do with this." So then, when Bob passed away, I put it aside. I was too sad and didn't do anything with it.
Right.
Um, then last summer, I wrote it and wrote the retreat, wrote what I wanted to say, and
Right.
then started kind of getting feelers out, trying to contact churches and seeing if they wanted to have me speak or anything. Well, it's hard to get your name out there when no one knows who you are or anything. And, so when I talked to our pastor's wife at our church and, asked her about it, of course, she was very gracious and said, "Yes, you can come speak at our church."
Right.
And, then the rest is just kinda catapulted from there. I already have another date coming up at another church, and,
Right.
hopefully, it'll just build and build and build. But it's just all about ladies telling their story because
Right.
everybody, like in what you're doing here, everyone
Right.
has a story, but especially women don't feel the freedom a lot of times to tell their
Right.
story, or they think their story won't change anything. They think
Right.
that their story is not powerful, or they've been told their story isn't powerful. And everyone's story is powerful and it can
Yeah, I
change
agree
the
with that.
life. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, the retreat is a time for ladies to tell their story and help others in the process of that. So,
So, what do you think might be like the reason behind that? Where women feel like that, the things that they've gone through isn't, valid enough
mhm,
to share. I mean, do you? Because like, I mean, you see, some even Heather's interview. I mean, just sitting down with people, period, and hearing their stories. People are just, people have different perspectives. They have different, they've been through different struggles. Um, so anybody, that's out there, I want you to encourage you, don't be afraid to share your story,
right.
because
Mhm,
things that you've gone through for a reason,
right. Mhm,
and sometimes the reason is for you, to help you grow, but sometimes you got to share that because it helps other people grow as well.
mhm,
And it helps them not to make maybe some of the same mistakes. It also gets them to know you as a person and some of the things that you've gone through.
mhm,
So I highly encourage you,
mhm.
to get out there and share your story. That's the whole purpose, of going through these things, is to be able to share
Absolutely. Right,
that.
absolutely.
So I think it's awesome that's what that you're doing that. So what reason or what's some of the reasons you think um, causes people to hesitate to do that?
Um, well, I focus mostly on women
Hmm.
for this, and
Right.
I think that a lot of times for women, we are raised to put our husbands first, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but, especially in, there's all behind every great man, there's a great woman, and it's
Right.
always behind, and it's always the husband story first.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not saying there's
Right.
anything wrong with that. I think it's just that we are not, um, allowed or don't feel the freedom to
Right.
express that story with each other. And sometimes women put a competition on each other to where it's a lie of the enemy, to where we look at someone and we say, "Oh, they have better clothes than I do," or
Right.
they look prettier than I do, so they're not going to want to hear what I have to say. And that's a lie of the enemy. And
Right.
I the whole thing is the whole idea behind the retreat is you you are in a open environment to where you can tell your story that will help someone else. It's it doesn't matter what story you have, it's valid. It's your story. You own
Right.
it, and someone else can gain so much from hearing what you have been through, what you
Right.
have gone through. Um, the idea that what you have gone through doesn't mean something is wrong.
Right.
Long time ago, I was in long time ago, I was in college,
Mm.
and I can honestly say I had not been through anything. No one in my family had passed away. Nothing had happened to me. Had lived a very sheltered life, and I was singing a song in Italian.
Wow.
I didn't know what it meant, but in the song, someone was dying.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yes. And I was just sitting there, singing Italian. And I was smiling through the song. And my voice teacher said to me, you don't get it. You don't get the story of the song.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what do you mean? And she said, because you're smiling and the girl
Wow.
is dying.
Wow.
And she said, obviously, you have never been through something in your life to bring the history into
Mhm.
singing this song. Does that make sense?
Right.
And
Right.
she made me change songs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I had to learn a whole new song in
Right.
Italian, but this other song fit my smile and fit
Right. Right.
right. And that has always stuck with me, that up to that point, up to that 19-year-old kid who had never been through anything, that was me.
Right.
The very next year, my aunt passed away, and I thought, "Oh, now I've been through something. Now I've been
Right.
through heartache, and I've been through now I understand what she means, right?
Right.
Now I have a part of a story where I could relate to someone who's lost someone."
Right.
Um, so anyway, I just I don't know. What I'm trying to say is women, especially, I don't know why it is, but I have just learned, I have just noticed, I've just observed that women don't readily think they can express
Right.
their story, and that other women would want to hear it, or
Right.
that other women would want to, or that other women could learn from it. And we
Right.
can. We can.
And when you talk about that, um, as a guy coming in, I have a lot of female audience and a lot of female friends that watch the show,
Mhm.
and I have a lot of them that come to me for advice.
Mhm.
And I'm a guy, so the advice I'm going to give you is going to be different than the
Sure.
advice that a woman's going to give you. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
As a guy, we're look. This is how you fix it.
Yeah,
This is how
exactly.
you fix it.
Right.
This is and so you might come across brass or I mean, like
It's just that's a
yeah,
man's
yeah,
approach. Right. Uh-huh.
right. And sometimes you really need a woman's perspective
Mhm.
to talk to to be able to
Mhm.
say, hey, I have just two friends off the top of my head who are in toxic relationships,
Mm.
and they're always talking to me. Well, they come to me. I don't say always talk to me, but they come to me for advice, and my advice is just dump the guy or whoever and move on and go find somebody that's not going to stress you out so much. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So having another woman who's been through that, who's
Mhm.
who I guess is more gentle, has a more general approach or whatever, Yeah, I mean, that's important. You
Right.
know, that's important, and so for women to think that that their opinion is less validated
Mm.
or less important, that's the whole purpose of the reason God created men and women. We think differently.
Right.
We think differently.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Our experiences are different, and um, so you know, I guess for me, if I was a woman, I would rather get that advice from another woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
In a way that I know there's more. They think it would more relate to me and what I was going through.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't. Again, I would highly encourage them to share.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's important. It's
Mhm.
important for them. Their perspective is different. Yeah, and everybody's talking about a male dominated world, um, but us guys, we have no clue in some of the stuff you guys. You know what I mean? We're totally clueless. So yeah, so we need you guys to step up. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
um, so so that kind of led into um, the retreat that you had done was a couple months ago
Uh-huh, it was in April. Mhm,
in April. Okay,
mhm,
and that was really successful.
mm.
So kind of tell us how things are going from there. How's that progress, and um, what is that turning into now?
Okay. Well, the church was awesome and they videoed every session for me. And
Mhm.
so I have an incredible sister-in-law
Well,
and she is very talented. And so she has taken all of the videos and taken some incredible pictures of me. We had a photo
mm,
op, which I'm not
well,
used to that.
mhm,
And she made a website for me. And now that I've put it on Facebook and given it to every friend I can think of, and the website is just kind of going out there. And I've already had a meeting with another church to try to set up another retreat. And so my goal is to get more and more retreats at other churches to do
okay,
this more and more often, as often as possible. I would love to,
right,
I mean, I would love to be busy every weekend doing this. My prayer actually is, Lord, let me be so busy that I have to turn some down,
well,
because this is a heart cry for me that women um, can do this, that they can tell their stories and be blessed. And I would love to do this all the time. So, yeah.
cool. So why don't you go ahead and you could tell us what the website is, and I'll go ahead and post it on
Oh,
uh,
okay.
the bottom of this as well, so that people could go visit it.
Okay. It's MichelleMcIntire.com. And
Hmm.
it's Michelle with one L and then McIntire.com.
Cool.
And then on Facebook, it's Michelle McIntire Ministries page. That's the page.
Okay.
Hmm.
And we'll definitely put both of those up.
Okay.
So what is some of the things that they can expect going to one of these
To
retreats?
retreat? Yes.
Yes.
At the retreat, you will get. Oh, I wore the shirt. I don't know if I can show you the shirt. The shirt says, "And what's your story?" Can you? Oh, it's wrong side. And what's your story? You get a
Right.
shirt, and on the back it says, "This will soon be your testimony." On the
Wow.
back, because it's all about telling your story.
Right.
And at the retreat, I talk for just there's 4 sessions. Um, one of the sessions is called Apple. And in that session, I just remind you that you are the apple of God's eye and that He
Wow.
loves you more than anything. Um, and then another session is I talk about being alone. I went from my parents' house to my husband's house, kind of thing. I haven't ever been alone until now, kind of. And I talk about a good alone and a bad alone
Right.
and how you experience being alone, but that you're really never alone when you're with God.
Right.
And I talk about altar, how you establish an altar with the Lord and the importance of altar with God.
Well,
And then I talk about action. What's your action going to be? Your action word that you feel the Holy Spirit impressing upon you and what you're going to do next with
right.
God. Uh-huh. And if you come to a retreat, you get a shirt
Mhm.
and then you get other little I don't know, I don't call them trinkets, but you get other little things that represent each of the different sessions, so the 4 sessions.
Right.
Um, but different like, each church can, um, fashion the retreat however they want. So if they don't want 4 sessions, we can do it in however you want. And
Right.
then also, like some churches have hired me just to do a one session thing, like for a Christmas event. I can speak at that. If you have a specific um, topic you want me to speak on, I can just do
Right.
that or something like that. So
Cool.
yeah.
One of the things I really like about the women's retreat that you have
Uh-huh.
is that, by um, bringing in, bringing the women in into this retreat, and them getting to hear each other's stories
Mhm.
is, that encourages and inspires them. And then hopefully that uh, helps them to open up and share their story.
Uh-huh.
So I encourage you, all the women that that hear about this to see that the dates on these to definitely go. And like I said, that when you did it at our church, everybody was talking about it.
Good.
And they all, like I said, they were coming to me and they're like, "Get Michelle on the show."
Yay, good.
So I know that it's effective. I know it's it's reaching people, and especially like I said, coming out of the pandemic and people are I think that they're craving
Mhm.
being around each other again
Yeah. Yeah, I
because they
agree.
miss that.
Mhm.
They miss it, and they miss and you know all the anxiety and the depression and everything that's been a result from it. Be able to go to something like this, I think is you know therapeutic.
Mhm.
And it's something that's really good for them to
Yeah.
get involved in. And then again, it helps them to hear stories from other people, but most importantly, it shows them that their story is also valid. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
so yeah, I want to thank you for what you're doing with that ministry. It's it's much needed. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
So, and, and that's the other thing too is as a society we've gotten so used to hiding behind electronics now, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and kind of um, distracting ourselves from being around other people,
Mhm.
and you know, people underestimate the importance of being around each other.
Right.
Because
Right.
um, like I said, it's our job to serve one another, and in serving, we're encouraging and inspiring each other as well. Yeah, and you learn a lot about people. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I really enjoy that. I really, I've for this entire year, I've been trying to make it a point to stop and just get to know the people around me.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and you get to hear their stories, you know, I'm just amazed. I can tell you right now, I'm probably one of the most blessed people. You know,
That's great.
so to be able to just sit down and do, what I've been doing this year, and
Mhm.
the people that I've talked to, and just to hear their stories is just it's amazing. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so I'm glad you're doing
Good,
that.
thank you.
So all right, cool. So now, do you have anything like any dates solidified yet, or are you still working?
No, I met with her yesterday, and
Okay.
she's going back to her calendar, and then, so I have one coming, so
All right,
yay.
cool. And so what we'll do is, like I said, we'll post that up with the interview. I'll go
Okay.
ahead and add that information, and so that people can keep track. And I definitely encourage you guys to go to this.
Thank you. Yay.
So, well, thank you, Michelle, for so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you. Thank you.
So, uh, like I said, we're going to post that up there. Go ahead and visit her website. And then, do you have on that website? Is there a way for them to communicate with you, like email?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's a way.
So, if you guys have any questions, or want to offer your church, or want to be involved and have Michelle come out as a guest speaker, feel free to send her an email, and she'll keep back with you. She'll be excited to hear from you guys.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, all right, guys, thank you for joining us today. Again, thank you, Michelle, for being on the show. It was great. It's great advice, and I want to see this thing be very successful.
Me too.
So,
Thank you.
as it grows, maybe we'll come back and we'll do another interview.
Okay, great. Love
Cool.
it.
All right, guys. Until next time, remember, you are uniquely designed with a purpose, and always keep moving forward. Peace.
Bye.